altogether.
Okay.
I think we should be just about live now, though.
Otherwise, but I was very proud of the effort that my colleagues put in the field, particularly our candidates who worked exceptionally hard, knocked on more doors than we've ever knocked on in any campaign before, made more phone calls than we've ever made before. They put in extraordinary efforts, and we'll see.
Yes, there you are.
Rewarded tonight.
There we are.
Well, indeed, sir. Thank you for joining us.
See.
Let's check in with the vote count this evening. Our reporter Nick Dole is at the Ingleburn Counting Centre in New South Wales. Talk us through what's going on behind you.
A fairly big delay there.
Yeah.
Like quite a big delay.
In New South Wales here at Ingleburn.
Oh yeah, there we go.
About 150,000
So like a minute.
votes just tonight. So once they're counted at the various ballot booths, they'll be taken to...
Guys, my friend was telling me it's the last... It's Jonathan Green's last night. No, Anthony Green's last election.
Votes and also the declaration votes.
So I'm watching ABC, but I did have
nearly 1 in 2 voters cast a ballot before polling.
a Sky News setup,
the work that they're doing
but
here.
yeah, I was just struggling with my camera to get that working. So
now, this centre is basically taking care of southwest Sydney.
I'll keep working on that.
Areas for Hughes and Hume over there. They're both held by the Liberals, the latter by Angus Taylor, and also the seats of Macarthur and Werriwa, both held by the Labor Party. Werriwa is going to be a key seat tonight, obviously. The Liberals, that's something they've really put a target on. They are hoping they might be able to snatch that back from Labor. Some of those House of Representatives...
So what's your predictions, Stu?
...are being counted.
But
we may not know for a
I
little
think
while
anything over 65 for Dutton
or whether Labor has managed to
is acceptable.
hold of some of its heartland.
Thank you.
If he loses, should he be replaced as the opposition leader?
No, absolutely not.
I agree. You got to give him another term.
That is a hard pass. Because I mean, who are they going to replace him with? That's the reality.
Yeah.
Who are they going to replace him?
They've got no one. No one at all.
So
you just get odd trends, early figures, but that's just to show you the numbers, and it's why we're not putting a great store in.
Oh wow, yeah, right. So Braddon is in Tassie, and they hold that by the Libs hold that by 8 points. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. A 12-point swing against the Liberals in Leichhardt is a major fucking problem. Leichhardt has been held by.
This is 0.3%. I'm just showing these to demonstrate that the numbers.
Leichhardt's been held. I mean, it's 3%. It's not a big margin, but it's been held by the LNP since 2007. But if you go back to, if you ignore the Rudd slide, it's been held since 1996. So. That's interesting. Fowler Diley is in trouble.
What we did observe over the
already. I don't think we should pay too much stock of these results yet. I think Diley will come through, surely.
I didn't know who. I hadn't taken a close look at it, but she's up against Tooley. So obviously the Liberal, the Labor Party.
Went to minor right-wing parties. But
pardon me.
Will flow back from the minor
so 0.3% of the primary candidates.
It sort of sprayed, as Ross talks about. And so then had a consequence on the 2PP vote.
But they obviously learnt the lesson of
in the other party
what's her name? Keneally? Like, I will never understand how anyone thought that Keneally was like some sort of
major party vote again.
Like political prodigy. I've never, you know what I mean? I really don't understand why the Labor Party really liked her. But
he was just a reliable factional sort of, player of the game internally.
Than it was last time. Traditionally,
but I mean, like she was powerful enough in the game to be able to play to pick her seat. So the idea that that to me is okay. So she thought she'd get parachuted into an ultra safe seat, but didn't have the political nous.
When we say from the right, it's
to understand that she was going in against. She was going into a seat where she just had no business there whatsoever. Like being parachuted into a seat, unless you've got some connection to the seat, it almost always ends in tears badly.
Yeah.
Caters to or caters for.
But
that group of voters.
Yeah. Look, my prediction is, I think by my count, they need 19 seats to get to government. They give them 76 seats. And I just don't think it's there. Like when I went through and took a look at what I think is gettable, I've got
we're likely to see something like that, a stronger flow of one.
I've got 17 gettable seats.
Yeah, I think
Brisbane is gettable. I think Ryan is gettable. In Queensland, in Victoria, I think Aston, Bruce, Chisholm, Goldstein, Kooyong, McEwen, Monash are gettable. It's slim pickings in New South Wales. But Michaela, Patterson, Warringah, and Wentworth, I think, are all gettable. Although Warringah, I think, is a long shot. Zali Steggall holds that by like a pretty big margin.
So I think on Dreadnought News, our first ever episode, I predicted that Bennelong would fall to the Libs. And I took a punt on it.
Thanks for bringing that up.
I think the odds were 7.5 to 1. So
yeah.
For instance, for the rest of the country, and then got awkward when you actually were in Queensland.
Yeah, it'll be hard to see. I really don't know. I think. I mean, I can't remember who was saying that. There was some Liberal stooge, Labor stooge, was saying Bennelong, he thinks he's going to be a bit of a bellwether, and that's probably right. But I am going to go ahead and say this.
I think Dunkley is my bellwether.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
We have Labor.
Dunkley is for certain gettable.
In terms of the Greens also, pilfering away at some of
I also have One Nation winning Hunter. I took a punt. It's long odds, but it's feasible. Well, One Nation, I expect One Nation to do well.
10%.
Yeah, I think they will too. I'm
Labor and the Greens on the left.
I'm not sure how to pick it yet, but to be honest, I think it's going to be a wash for the Greens. I actually think it's going to be a bad election for them. So like Liberals can't get Griffith. That's not happening.
No, but it's never been a Liberal seat though.
No,
that was
Kevin
Rudd's old seat.
Yeah, I would be unsurprised to see Labor retake it.
Yeah, Griffith is Max Chandler Mathers. So So he's a snotty little shit, but I think he'll lose, honestly. Yeah. But I actually don't mind his policies, like focus on housing. Yeah, it's a good idea. But anyway,
I don't. I like focus on housing, obviously, but not the idea that public works is going to fix housing is moronic, can only be held by someone who has no conception whatsoever of what it takes to build multi-dwelling apartment blocks.
Yeah, and just totally ignoring immigration as a factor as well, as a demand side factor.
Yeah, and
you can't fix the problem if you're not willing to face the reality of what's causing it. And so, I think
they don't. But Greens are communists, man. They don't view that as a problem. They want that. They want a destabilized, no coherent national identity, mass interchangeable widget population that they stick in filing cabinets, like Cairo or Beijing.
So this is interesting. Now we had two other elections this week before this one. Firstly, there was Mark Carney's triumph. Mark Carney, who was literally the previous governor of the Bank of England. Like, he's not even Canadian. He's like 1/3 English, 1/3, he's got lives in New York City. He's like a banks, and then he just part-time lives in Canada, and now he's the prime minister. And so, yeah, that was interesting. And everyone started dooming like, oh, the Conservatives are done. And then what happened last night in the UK in the council elections, Reform UK
Barnstorm.
Absolute landslide, the likes of which have never been seen before. They completely demolished the Conservative Party and took like 3/4 of Labor's vote as well.
Yeah.
It was
And
outstanding.
as I was saying, like, I don't mind Kemi Badenoch, but I've got to word this carefully.
She's done.
I don't think she's a credible face. Like, yes, you can't call her a white supremacist, but I don't think she's a credible face for a campaign that will be fought on England for Englanders, because she's Caribbean. Like, and was it David Lammy? Like, there's a real problem with dual loyalty with David Lammy. Like, he's proposing somewhere in the ballpark of $2 trillion in reparations to Caribbean islands. What is that man doing in the English Parliament? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, that's, to me, that seems like it's a foreign agent in Parliament. And we've got a few of those people in our Parliament. It's their primary concern, and this is actually the Greens all up and down the line. The Greens' primary concern this election has been Gaza.
Mm.
In the middle of a cost of living crisis in Australia, their primary focus was Gaza. And like near our polling station, like our early polling station, the Greens volunteers were wearing keffirs. So, like, the international symbol of baby strangling and then ransoming the body back. That's what that scarf means. I'm willing to strangle the life out of a 6-month-old infant, sit on the body for 2 years, and then ransom it back. That's who the Greens stand with. And that's who the Greens decided to fight this election over. So I actually think that the Greens are going to have a shit night, to be honest. And hopefully it's a death spiral, because I think the mask is off for them now, that they are just communists.
So I hope you're right. I don't know how to predict that. What's your prediction for the Teals tonight?
Well, I think Zali will probably hang on. Allegra Spender might get there, but I think is it Scampi or whatever her name is? I think she's fucked. I think Zoe Daniels and Monique Ryan are fucked too.
So you think 3 of them are toast?
At least, yeah.
So my colleague, John Ruddick, the Libertarian MLC in Sydney, he thinks that the Teals all of them will hold their seat, even Monique Ryan. And in fact, he thinks they'll double their numbers. And I think, one of the things that's been gnawing away at me is like Slimy Holmes a court, like all respect to him, he's like having a massive impact, but surely what he's doing is completely illegal. And what is the AEC doing? Like just sitting on their hands and ignoring him, setting up pretty much the 3rd or 4th most powerful political party in the country, and doesn't even register as a party, doesn't follow any of the like campaigning laws or anything like that. And the AEC is just like, oh, no, nothing to see here. What's going on with that?
Yeah, that's interesting. So, but what does he base his opinion on then?
Why does he think the Teals are going to well, because
the polling has not been good for them. They've been going backwards in the polling.
I haven't seen any.
The polling is really bad for Monique Ryan. Really bad.
Yeah.
She's not polling at all. And she's been a horrific local member.
I mean, I don't know why John Ruddick is predicting that, but I'm just saying that's what his prediction is. I also don't know how to call that either. I'm happy to predict One Nation will have a good night. And,
I think that's right.
And I just hope there's a shy Tory vote that wasn't picked up in the polls. That's what I'm banking on.
Yeah, I I don't think there is, to be honest. I not a big enough of a shy Tory vote. I don't think so this time around. I just think talking to people who are not plugged into politics, I think there's a bit of apathy. Apathy is what I'd describe it. Like, whatever happens tonight, Albo will say this, but it's wrong. It should not be taken as like a ringing endorsement of Albo. You know what I mean? Like, nobody is particularly keen on Albo. He's a liar. He's dumb. Like, yeah, no. Tonight will not be like a ringing endorsement of how amazing Albo's leadership has been. But I think the Mediscare thing, I don't understand how that is still. It really doesn't compute. I don't get it. I don't understand how that can be prosecuted. But what I will say is just from my local election, like, if I was to sum up the reason why I cannot bring myself to join the Liberal Party, it would be the Liberal candidate's campaign in Jagga Jagga. I've never seen anything as lackluster, as amateurish. Like, in none of his printed material was there a electorate-specific policy. Not one. You know what I mean? And like, I get, like, I don't know, like, all I can really say to the Liberal Party is throw me a freaking bone here, man. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know that they're not putting effort in because it's a 12-point seat for Labor, but come on. You know what I mean? Like, you can't find 50 million in the budget to give him something to announce. You know, like, 50 million is a footpath. Just something, anything at all. But no, nothing. Like, his personal webpage has one photo of him and 20 photos of Peter Dutton. Like, you know what I mean? What do you do with that? So, like, I fully expect that Labor will extend their lead in my electorate. I would expect that come the next election, and you know what I mean? Like, that it becomes a self-reinforcing loop then. So, like, 12 points, oh, well, don't bother to stick any resources into that. Oh my God, now it's 16 points. And then at the next election, oh, it's 16 points. Don't bother to stick any resources into that. Like, I don't know how they solved that problem, but you do need to find competent, enthusiastic people who want to run. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So, like, you just make it clear to them, this is a Hail Mary campaign, so we're not going to give you a lot of money, but you're going to have to work at it. Like, just one policy that was specific to he couldn't even find that. So, like, how do you differentiate that from the incumbent?
But yeah, I've thought about this as well from the perspective of a minor party. Like, how does a minor party sort of break through on any,
Yeah.
And I think it has to start local, and it takes time. Like, you can't leave it to like 6 weeks out from the election and then start declaring policies. No, you have to, like, engage with the community constantly, somehow, every week for 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's what the Teals have done. That's what the Teals have done with Simon Holmes, of course, money, mind you. Like, they're volunteers.
Yeah.
There's rumors are they've been paid, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah. So I think last election, there was a lot that were just keen to be there. So, so I think there's a couple of factors going on. Like at some point, I heard Chris Ullman say this, and I mean, it's not a particularly devastating insight. I like Chris Ullman, but net zero. Did you see Tony Blair?
He came out against it. Yeah.
He wrote his letter saying it's bullshit. We're never going to get it done. And it's totally unethical and unreasonable for us to expect it to get it done. But the key thing that Chris Ullman pointed out is India, China, Russia, and the United States are not on board for net zero. And between those four countries, you have 60% of the world's population, which that just means it doesn't matter what Europe does. So now you're up to 70, 80% of the world population. And here we are down in Australia, all 25 million of us, living this ridiculous fantasy that we can do net zero, or we should do net zero, or we should do anything regarding global environment that China doesn't lead the way on. If China doesn't do it, we shouldn't be signed up to it. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? Because we're a fucking rounding error. Is our emissions do not make any difference of any kind. We're an absolute rounding error, and until we shouldn't be signed up to it. Someone is willing to have a good until someone is willing to have that debate seriously, and just say, until China, India, and the United States, all three of those are signed on to climate change stuff, we're not doing anything. Because we're not going to do the economic self-harm that we've been doing. You know what I mean? And I think that's what that idea pathogen is really embedded in inner city people. And I seriously don't know what it's going to take to break it, because those inner city seats, like they're a little bit out of the center of the city. They have some serious wealth in them.
Hey, it's your seat, Jagger.
Oh, I'm on TV.
Kate Thwaite, 62% of the primary vote so far.
Yeah, I did say. I did say there was never any doubt on that front, I'm afraid. Yeah, I don't want to call myself a political savant, but yeah, I was comfortable that not only would he lose, he'd go backwards.
Yeah, it's still too early. We need to have like 10% of the votes in before we can start getting a picture, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Labor is not leading in Jagger. The tally room of the AEC has Jagger as too close to call.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not. It's not. The Liberals are going to lose Jagger, and they're going to lose it badly. Oh my God! It's now it's 70%. It's an 8.4% swing to the ALP.
Ooh.
Oh my God!
That's insane. Really? What's going on in Jagger?
Oh no! Hang on a minute. What's going on here? What is going on here? What is going on here? This data doesn't make any sense on the ABC's website. 8.4% swing to the ALP. But then in the first preference, she's had a -2, nearly a -10% swing. Yeah, that's weird. I can't see. It's 0.6% counted though, so let's.
Here's one, Gilmore.
Mm.
Excuse me. I'm hoping Andrew Constance can put in a good showing here because, yeah, I honestly didn't think he was that great of a transport minister though when he was in the state parliament. But it looks like he's had a massive swing against him. But most of that's been picked up by, One Nation and the Independent. Anyway, it's early days, but
that's 7.6% counted in Hawke, 8% swing to Labor. Yeah, yeah. Dutton's in trouble. Dutton's in serious trouble.
Yeah, you would not want to see a swing against the coalition.
A big swing in northwestern Melbourne towards Labor is very, very bad. Because northwestern Melbourne is in the process of changing at the moment.
So
like the state elections, it's going to be a fucking bloodbath. But obviously at the federal level.
So this does appear to be, at the start we said there was two different pathways. There was the Canadian pathway and the UK council election pathway. It does seem to be at this stage to be going down more the Canadian pathway. So, look,
to round out that thought that I was saying about the climate change stuff, the wealthy seats are not going to be deterred from the climate change stuff until I don't know what you do to make them hurt. Because like financially, because that's the only way they'll change their ways on that. The only way.
Exactly.
So you'd have to do stuff that I don't know would be like if you were to start tariffing Chinese batteries and end the electric car handout. Oh, geez, Louise. Yeah, okay.
Danger in that seat. The change.
No, look. Wentworth. The Liberal candidate is ahead.
Translating to a two-candidate.
I told you that was open.
Wow, good call, Stu.
Nicolette Buller, but at this stage, we're not calling that seat. It is only 3%. At the moment, that's what we're seeing.
It'll be hard to see. It's hard to say exactly because it's still early. Jesus, swing towards Labor and away from the Liberals in the Brisbane seat. But a swing away from the Greens. Yeah, I was confident that the Greens. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even reading tea leaves there, but that's interesting. Ratnam is okay. So Wills. Yeah, that's really interesting.
What are you seeing?
Austin. Yeah, okay, that's not good. Austin looks like Labor will hold on to that.
Where's Austin?
Austin is in Victoria. And Austin was like a do or die. Austin had to be got. And it's holy shit. What's the percentage counted? 2%. 2% counted. No, look.
Could just be a
left leaning swing away from the Liberals in Austin. That is bad. That is really bad.
Hang on. Just wait until it shakes out. A lot of the pre-polls, as we were saying the other night, do swing to the coalition. So, yeah. Too early for dooming, Stu.
Yeah. It is interesting, though. So, One Nation, Libertarian, Trumpet of Patriots, and Family First are all having like healthy swings toward them. And you would expect that it's likely that those are going to come Liberal to Liberal rather than to Labor.
That was always my core thesis, Stu. When everyone was dooming it over the polls, saying, "Oh, look how low the Liberal primary is," I was like, "Yeah, that's all going to come back in preferences because Dutton Dutton found himself, in December and January in a slim and unlikely but a lead, and so decided to play defense and appeal to, try to play defense, try to appeal to the middle. It was a mistake. He needed to go harder on nuclear, and I mean Dutton. I'm not going to say Dutton, but the Liberals did really screw up the campaign by allowing the lies that Labor said to go unchallenged. The $600 million nuclear. To counter that, Peter Dutton needed to be at every single site where the nuclear power plants was going to be building and say, this plant is going to cost $8 billion. $8 billion for this one plant, and just pushing it home. It's not going to cost $600 million. And meanwhile, they needed to be getting out the $1.2 trillion figure for Labor's plan. But they didn't do that. They sort of became embarrassed about, there must have been like focus groups with like, oh, nuclear is a bit iffy for us. We better not talk about it. I'm telling you, nuclear energy was a vote winner for them. Yeah, especially among men. But then they thought, oh no, we got to appeal to women, so we better not talk about nuclear. No, that's the wrong attitude. And so.
Look, I mean, that's my attitude as well. Like this idea that it's like women don't like nuclear is like not even an argument. You know what I mean? Like, so sit down and have the argument, because women are still people. So you know what I mean? Like, if you can put forward a persuasive case, and that won't be hard because it's true, that nuclear energy allows us to go to net zero, well, not net zero, but to decarbonize electricity generation, without having to redo the entire grid, then they'll come around. And all you need to be saying is like, man or woman, doesn't matter. They want to pay less for electricity. It is that simple. You know what I mean? So you got to be attacking that pocketbook, and don't be afraid of an issue because like demographic X doesn't like it.
No, exactly. And what they need to do
is, the truth is on your side, have the argument.
It's like basic salesmanship. You don't sell the feature, which is nuclear energy. You sell the benefit. Eventually, electricity that's too cheap to meter. Eventually we'll be able to afford a UBI, and we'll be able to look after all the homeless people because we'll have such a good economy, because this is our grand vision for the future. And you got to speak. Yeah, this is what Labor did. They promised things which they knew they couldn't do, like the power cut bill, because if you lose, you've lost nothing anyway. I don't know why Liberals didn't just go all out and just like say anything to get elected, like, which is what Labor did, and that's the way they did to, in this campaign as well, like make up complete lies about Medicare and nuclear energy, just complete lies. But everyone pretty much, especially the disengaged, they seem to buy it. Anyway, Stu, our Zoom session is going to run out. I'll drop you another link in Telegram.
Cool. Before we drop though, I've taken a look at Ryan, Griffith and Brisbane. They're on track for all three of those Greens to lose their seats.
Yeah.
I was telling you it was going to be a wipeout for the Greens.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's a good call. let's just have a 2-minute break as well while.
Very good.
And I'll see you on the next Zoom bridge. All righty.
Bookmarked on my ABC site to keep an eye on. So there'll be a lot of
either in Canberra.
There'll be a lot of unpredictability. It won't all be one-way traffic. Even if we do well, even if James's party does well, there'll be seats changing hands in both directions.
It's going to be an interesting night based on these very early numbers. We've got no doubt about that. Seats moving in different directions. Let's go to Chinchilla now in Queensland. The local RSL, where the Nationals are holding an election night evening, and our reporter Steph Dalzell is there. Steph, what's at stake there tonight?
Yes, David Littleproud will be here in his electorate of Maranoa, but of course, as evidenced by the fact it's already been called, it's a very safe seat, and his focus will be elsewhere tonight. There's a key contest in the New South Wales seat of Calare, the Nationals versus the defector, former MP Andrew Gee, who quit the party over its opposition to The Voice and is now recontesting that seat in what's been a very bitter battle. There's also the New South Wales seat of Cowper. The Nationals are holding it, but it's under threat from an independent. In Victoria, we've seen an unusual situation in the seat of Bendigo, where the Nationals are really talking up their chances of getting that seat, even though it's a safe Labor seat, and Labor thinks it will retain it. And also in WA, there's a three-cornered contest in the seat of Bullwinkle. Now, David Littleproud has claimed credit for leading the coalition's agenda on a number of fronts, and if the Nationals have a bad result tonight, it could mean trouble for his leadership.
Yeah, well, we'll see. The Nats pretty confident, though. Steph Dalzell, thank you. And I think that is, in fact, the safest seat in the country, David Littleproud's.
On our side, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, certainly on the coalition side. Let's get to Anthony Green now with some more numbers for us. Anthony, what have you
Yes, we're having there's a lot happening. It's we're struggling to actually illustrate it in some sense, because there's a lot happening, a lot of seats, but some of them we're just doubtful about. The Labor Party is currently projected between 34 and 35% nationally, with 4% counted. The Coalition on 31, Greens on 12.4, others at 12. Now, the change in vote since the last election at the moment is Labor's up 2, the Coalition's down 4, and the two-party preferred swing is 3.1% with 4.6% counted. So we're seeing a lot going on. I just want to, I'll do Queensland as the state figures first. We need to go to this one first. Labor Party's projected to 31, the Coalition at 35, the LNP in Queensland 12.8 for the Greens. If we look at the change in vote, the Labor vote's up, the LNP vote is down, the others 2.5. And Queensland is turning into a swing of 3.2%. Now, we're going to look at a couple of seats at the moment. To do that, I go to the map, and then I go to the seat run. The first one is Peter Dutton's seat of Dixon. Now, it is only 5% counted. It's a very low primary vote. Labor's primary vote is low. Ellie Smith, who's one of the Climate 200 backed independents, on 14%. It's 9 polling places. Look at the change in vote in those polling places. A big drop in the LNP vote and a rise in the independents. And I think, this is an estimate of preferences on those numbers. We estimate a 5% swing now. It is 5.2%. But this is the sort of swing we're seeing in every seat at the moment. Here's Petrie, 8.2% counted. Emma Corner, who I must admit was one of the last announced Labor candidates, and to see her ahead of a long-serving Luke Howarth is quite a surprise. The change in vote there again, it's that rise in the Labor vote, the LNP vote down, and the two-party preferred swing of 6.8. The one reason I'm not saying, what I will say at the moment is, I've always said that when there's an election where nothing's happening, it's sort of the hardest to call. When there's an election when you're not expecting a big swing to Labor, you're of course you're surprised to see it actually occur. But that's what we're seeing at the moment. There's nothing which is looking good, particularly good for the Coalition at this stage. I'm not prepared to call it with, what's the national figure? With only 4.9% counted. But admittedly, with all those pre-polls, with all those postals, these are looking good for the Labor Party without being anywhere near calling this election.
No, okay, and that's important that we're still early, just under 5% of the vote counted, but none of it so far, none of it is looking good for the Coalition. That primary vote that Labor's sitting on there is, if anything, I think above what the polls were suggesting. It'll come down, you would assume.
If Labor finishes ahead on the primary vote, they will have a significant victory.
Yeah, and I just want to go to the seat that really jumped out there, I think, for everybody.
Depending on how preferences flow.
Peter Dutton's seat of Dixon. James McGrath. Does that concern you, those early numbers there?
Let's see. Let's wait for pre-poll. You're going to hear me say that for a while. But remember with that seat that Peter's had it since 2001. Every single election, it has been a very close election. I think in 2007 he won it by 100 votes. It is a classic fight there. The fact that the Teal Independent has behind Labor, I think will help us. I can't recall what a how to vote card said in relation to, or whether it was just an open how to vote card.
Yep. Jim Chalmers, what do you think about the seat of Dixon?
My phone's blowing up about Dixon, but again, we think that the early voting, which will come in huge chunks later in the night,
we'll bring it back,
will be better for him than on the day. But there's a lot of interest, as you can imagine, because of that big early number.
Well, there certainly will keep coming back to Dixon, you can be sure of that. Right now, though, we want to go to Adam Burns.
I really hope
the Greens function there in Melbourne. Thank you for joining us. How are the Greens feeling about your prospects tonight?
Look, good. Woke up this morning to find that we were up in all the polls. I spent some time on booths in Wills and Melbourne and Macnamara today, and we're certainly getting really positive feedback. People have heard our messages throughout the campaign. Obviously, like, the polls are closed there now. It's still going over in Western Australia, where Sophie Greer in the seat of Perth is running hard there. But look, we were certainly getting the sense that, must have been something good go up, bit of noise in the background here, but we were certainly getting the sense that people had heard our message that we want to keep Peter Dutton out, but the government just wasn't doing enough on the housing, cost of living and climate crisis.
Good evening to the Greens Army tonight, Adam Band. It's Bridget Brennan here. You might tell them to have a bit of shush while we
shut the fuck
interview just for a few more questions. Hey, I'm really curious, what are you predicting for Wills tonight? You've put a lot of resources into this seat in Melbourne's inner north.
Yeah, look, the booths that I was on felt really good. There was a lot of people who voted early, and of course that's, I think...
Hey, Stu.
Hey. And I'm back.
Hey. Oops. I want to... Okay. How can I... All right. There you go. Yeah, while you were gone, I turned the sound on. I was just listening to James McGrath say basically the same thing. Wait for pre-polls because they traditionally, in Australia at least, swing heavily to the LNP.
So we could be seeing a bit of a distortion, you think?
I think so. A lot of the people who vote on the day...
Well, look, my view on it, I should be clear. I'm not and have never been dooming because my operating model is Dutton would have pulled off a minor miracle to win government from opposition after a single term. 94 years ago was the last time it happened. Now, I'm here to say that Albo has been a horrifically bad PM, and it was there to be had. I think it was doable. What I was dooming about, and I think early polling seems to suggest that it's not going to happen, which is good. Is a minority government with Greens, and I think that was a live possibility. I'm fairly confident it's not going to happen.
Not if the Greens lose most of their seats. If there's way more Teals than Greens, obviously, and this is what John Roddick was saying as well, it'll actually be good if Albanese is forced to go into a minority with the Teals, because that will expose the Teals for who they were, because they stood as if they were just disaffected Liberals. You know, they were the natural Liberals, but because the Liberal Party wasn't taking climate change seriously enough, they reluctantly put up their hands, you know. And it was always BS. It was always a left-wing psyop
Yes.
To assist
Yeah.
to aid the Labor Party. And once they go into, if it's a minority government and Albanese relies on the
Oh, sorry,
Tills,
I'm just saying Bonner.
Ross
Yeah.
Vasta.
Yeah,
I know they wanted to.
Bonner's swinging towards Labor pretty strongly.
Yeah, I know they wanted to. I remember they did want to target that one. I recall.
Yeah. So yeah, look, it's not shaping up to be a great night. Well, for the Liberal Party, but as I said, here's where I land. Anything above 65 seats for the Liberal Party, well, the coalition, Dutton should be retained. Anything below that, look, let's not mince words. It's been a bad campaign. The exact cause of this bad campaign, I'm not sure I understand. The short answer is I really don't understand. I really don't understand it. Like that work from home thing. My own view is that was if that was pitched correctly, you could fix it. But because he needed to lead with, we've got a fairly significant problem in Canberra of public servants working from like their RV in Bateman's Bay. And that's not an exaggeration. That is a problem that they have.
Oh, I know. But that's the thing.
Yeah,
but
so,
if I put myself in a public servant's shoe, that's what I would want to do too. So
yeah, and there's no fun. So, but the way you need to pitch it is public servants in Australia are amongst the most well-paid public servants anywhere in the world and sit in the top, like above the 80th percentile of average wages.
Look, I'm a libertarian, so you don't need to convince me, but you do need to convince.
What I'm saying though is, so let me develop the point a little bit. There is a real issue there, and I think an issue that would piss the public off if you hit with just fact after fact after fact.
Which they failed to do, yeah.
Yeah, which, yes, nobody wants to have the number of nurses in a frontline hospital reduced because everyone's experienced sitting in the emergency room for an hour and a half. You know what I mean?
Again, you don't sell the feature, you sell the benefit.
Yeah.
You don't say, oh, we're going to end work from home because of this. You say, we're going to cut your taxes by 50%.
Well, so he hamstrung himself by refusing to, he was going to wind back the tax cuts. To my mind, like, you know what I mean? Like you do, okay, whatever. We'll match the income tax cuts. Unlike Albanese, who promised to give you your stage 3 tax cuts and reneged. But the real issue there was you got a 6-week campaign. He's had at least 6 months where he had to be able to do from about November last year, the election could have been called at any moment when it was most favorable. Now, the odds were always pretty good that it was going to be, like, unless there was like a massive electoral swing towards them, they were going to wait for a budget so that they could splash a lot of money, which is what happened. But he has had to have policies that you have to argue and fight an election on since about November last year. Now, I follow it and I don't know what his pitch is. That's a problem. You know what I mean? That's a big fucking problem.
Yeah, same.
And he reversed himself on the work from home. Now,
because it's a spiteful policy, Stu. You can't win voters with spite. You have to win them over with benefits.
Did he get any kudos? Did he get any kudos for listening? No. So once a policy is out there in an election campaign, which is why it's important that you do the policy work ahead of the fucking election, is you can't reverse yourself. Because then you're just a flip-flopper. Then you're not ready to govern because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
which is ironic coming from Albo, who just no man has ever been more out of his depth in the history of the world. It's, like maybe Jonah in the whale's belly. but yeah, that's interesting.
What's up?
Dutton's had a 10% swing against him in Dixon.
They're not going to get Dixon. If they do, I guess Pierre Poilievre lost his seat in Canada. I mean, if he does, I guess that makes the discussion of who should be the next Liberal leader a live topic, because it's not going to be Dutton. Oh, here we go. Griffith. Renee Coffey is on 37%. She's beating Max Chandler.
She's going to get it. Yeah.
Yep, she's beating him. Yep. Because...
Yeah. Whoever between Ryan, between the Greens and the Liberal, the Labor, whoever has the bigger primary vote will win that seat. So, I am.
Labor's going to win Brisbane too. Yep.
Yeah.
So Greens lost 2 of their 3.
Greens are on track to lose 3 of their 4 seats, and numbers are still not coming in for Melbourne, which is weird. I don't
Ryan, and if Ryan is the other one, where the Green is coming 3rd. So yeah, she's not even. Gonna... Wow.
Ryan is a Liberal seat.
Well, the Liberals aren't going to win it because Labor.
They aren't going to win it, but it is a Liberal seat. So
it always was a Liberal seat. That's like Strathpine, like the rich area.
Oh no! It's Indooroopilly.
Yeah, Indooroopilly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so it's near Queensland University. Like, it's actually a pretty wealthy part of town.
It's going to be a Teal seat in the future.
No, it's not. It's not.
We'll see how the Teals do, because John Ruddock's expecting them to double their numbers. So we'll see if that comes true.
Well, hang on a minute. Let's take a quick look. Let's take a look. Kooyong. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, she had. How does that make sense?
What?
Amelia Harmer. Yeah, Monique Ryan might get there, but the Greens are having a negative 3.5%. Labor are having a negative 1%. I think she's in trouble. I think Harmer can get there.
Let's have a look.
Goldstein.
Kooyong. Where's Kooyong? A, B, C, D, F, G, H. I, J, K. Hey, where's...
and to be blunt with you, I think Zoe Daniels going to lose her seat.
Oh, that would be great. Why can't I find Kooyong?
Okay, I think Zoe Daniels is going to lose her seat. That's good.
Goldstein. Is that who's
Tim
that?
Wilson.
Hey. Ooh. The projection. Let's see more details. Okay. So Amelia Hammer has 43% of the vote. But
then it's not saying what swing she's received.
0% swing.
Which that doesn't seem like it's possible.
Okay, so...
Okay, that's interesting.
So, yeah.
It looks like Allegra... That is insane. Allegra Spender looks like she's had a 12-point swing towards her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Insane.
I think, yeah, John Rudd, on these numbers, Monique Ryan would be the favourite. If you add Labor and the Greens, That's 15%. To Monique Ryan's 37%. She's on 52%. That's a win.
Mm.
So Monique Ryan, disgracefully, but this is the sophomore swing that Peter Brent talks about. You usually expect an MP to receive a swing towards them if it's their first re-election attempt. So we're seeing a sophomore. I think we're seeing a sophomore swing, and this is usually happens. This is why, like you said before, first-term governments usually get re-elected because they have a lot of members getting a sophomore swing towards them.
No, there we go. Coalition can't win majority government is the call of Sky News.
No, well, no one was expecting. No one was
Yeah.
expecting that they were going to win majority. No one was expecting that. Even when they were ahead in the polls, people still thought the most likely outcome was a Labor minority. With Labor's, comeback in the polls, I thought maybe Labor will get a majority. I'm hoping for a minority, and because whoever they're in,
I'm not. I genuinely think a minority government will be extremely damaging. Extreme.
Yeah, but to them more than to the country, yes, but to Labor Party more so, because they'll be, they'll have to be dragged even further left than what they already are by their coalition partners, which will just make everyone. Oh, look at this. This is the guy who nationalized 50,000 immigrants in one weekend.
Naturalized.
Yeah. So that they could vote for him. Oh, and look at all the immigrants in the background. Oh, look what I won. I won re-election by giving you all citizenship. What a traitor. What a traitor. I can't believe that.
Yeah. I dislike him with some intensity. I don't know. 43% primary vote. And
like this for granted.
Yeah, hard to say. Hard to say. Let's take a look. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So Bowen looks like he's home and hosed.
Oh no! I was hoping Matt Kamazuli would be able to knock him off.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. Yeah, no, it's 3% counted, and he's already passed 2,000 votes. I can't. How many votes are in an electorate? It's something like. I suppose I can probably figure that out from there. 3.9%. 4,000. I can never remember. Do you know how many votes there are supposed to be in an electorate?
What do you mean? How, like 40,000 or so?
Yeah. That sounds about right.
Now this is interesting.
In
the seat of Hunter, they've they've got the Nationals here as the as Labor Party is receiving a swing, but actually in second place is One Nation on nearly 20% of the vote.
Was what? What are we saying?
In the seat of Hunter, they've got on two-party preferred a 5.9% swing to the ALP. That's assuming that the second place candidate is the National. But when you actually look into the votes, Stuart Bonds is actually the second place candidate and almost 20% of the vote. And
yeah, bananas.
And yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's really interesting.
We'll have to see how that shakes
Front of the
out.
Patriots is doing well there
They are actually. Sue Ellen Wrightson is standing there. Oh, Clive. Why did you put Sue Ellen Wrightson? Maybe that's where she lives, but anyway, you would think that Shooters, Family First, and Trumpet of Patriots and the Nationals would all flow into Stuart Bonds. So yeah,
you would think so.
We just have to keep an eye on the ABC here. I think One Nation is doing really well in that seat, which is what I expected to happen. But
yeah. Any of those seats that are like a no, Braddon is a big swing towards Labor.
Really, Braddon is got a teal candidate, doesn't it?
Maybe.
Yeah, Braddon is what the Libs thought. Now let's have a look at Bennelong. If we can find Bennelong. Where's Bennelong? Now let Braddon, what? Let's go back. Okay, Braddon is Tasmania. Okay, that's not the one I was thinking of. Let's have a look at Bennelong. Is Laxell going to get a... Oh, how is he getting a swing? Oh my gosh. What is going on? This was the guy he was like creeping on underage girls. What's going on? Let's see more details. I had high hopes for Scott Young here. No, yeah. On these early figures, Scott Young is getting pummeled. Well, yep, this is looking like we can call a Labor victory. It's looking like it. And honestly, the Liberal Party has got no one to blame but themselves. They were in power since 1996, so that's 30 years basically, 29 years. They were in power for 20 of those years. Did they once do anything to counteract the radical left-wing indoctrination of children?
In school. Yeah,
from the age of literally 3 onwards. Did the Liberal Party do anything?
Children go into institutionalized care where mandatory left-wing indoctrination, they go in at the age now of 4. And if you go to uni, that means that communists have had their grubby mitts on your kid from the age of 4 till between 22 and 25.
Yeah, exactly. And at any stage, the Liberal Party could have, in power, they could have done something. I know they made a feeble attempt at it in the early stages of the Abbott administration. That was it, though.
Yeah.
At any stage, they could have scorched earth because it's an existential issue for
what
them.
needed to happen, yeah.
It's an existential issue for them. They failed to do that, so the Liberal Party is going to die, and Australia will have to suffer socialism like they have in the UK. And then on the other side of that, will be reborn a new party like it's happening in the United Kingdom. And it won't be the Liberal Party. Hopefully it's the Libertarian Party. But that's what's going to have to happen by the look of it.
Yeah. No, yeah, the only way out now is through. I think it is fair to say
Exactly. This is
the only way out now is through.
This was the Liberals' last chance to save themselves as a party. With this crushing defeat, there's no other way to look at it.
Yeah, well, I mean, crushing defeat is not how I would put it.
They needed to be gaining seats. They are losing seats.
You think they're losing seats?
Okay, I'll rephrase that. They needed to be gaining seats. They are receiving a huge swing against them in the seats that they needed to get swings towards them, such as Benelong.
There wasn't enough definition about what he stood for.
Oh, absolutely not. It was a shopping bag that he brought to a knife fight. I mean, if you don't like this policy, I've got another one in the end. I bet you many voters couldn't remember half the policies, 90% of the policies he was talking about, or even in whose policies they were, because there's no story with them. There was no definition with them, no philosophy behind them. I think this is one, we normally say oppositions don't win elections, governments lose them. I think this is one the coalition did actually lose.
Andrew Bolt says the coalition did actually lose this election. He made a point, which I made earlier, which was I pay attention to this stuff and I don't know what Dutton's pitch was.
Yeah, that was.
What's your pitch? Why should you govern? I pay a lot of attention to this stuff, and I don't know the answer to that question.
Good point. Yeah. What was even the point of voting for you? For me, it was, why I gave Liberals my preference is I want nuclear energy so that we can have electricity that's too cheap to meter and a thriving manufacturing sector again, driven by automation, high-tech robotics. We can become like a power. That's what I want. I want a UBI. I want a UBI for everyone, driven by a massive increase in wealth, which can only be caused by a massive increase in electricity use. That's what I want.
Yeah, I'm hard line against UBI. I don't want a UBI, even if we could afford it, which we can't. I am hard line against it.
Okay, so this is my conception of a UBI. The government doesn't actually give any cash to anybody. Definitely not. Like, that is just ridiculous. At the moment, we basically have a UBI. Because if you don't have cash, the government will give you cash. I think that should stop.
Yeah.
But I do think instead of funding the government, if you say I'm against the UBI, yes, I'm against the government just handing cash to everyone. But at the moment, the government funds pretty much everything directly, which is a hugely inefficient way of managing the economy. So instead, I would get the government to give school vouchers and health vouchers. Abolish Medicare, and you get health vouchers, and just do that for everything. I think we're a big enough land mass that you should be able to live rent free in, say, Goulburn or Gundagai or something like that. There should be an incentive for private developers to go out there, build a duplex, because they know that instead of having public housing,
buys the duplex?
No one buys it. You rent it out to someone. They pay for it with the rent vouchers that the government gives them.
Okay.
and it's basically the same system we have now, except that it's fairer. That's all, and it involves more of the free market. I think you're underestimating how much the government controls the economy. We don't have a free market economy. We have a command economy.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think at the moment in Australia, I would say, I don't think it's fair to say that we have a command economy. What I would say, though, is government infrastructure spending at the moment is strangling the private economy to death.
Exactly.
So let me give you a clear cut example of this. I was discussing this with the wife before. So Albanese, I couldn't figure out why Albo has said, "Oh, we're always going to keep the NBN in public hands." Dutton wants to sell it off, which is a really fucking weird thing to do because the whole pitch of the NBN was it's an investment. When it's done, we sell it at a profit to the private sector. Private sector runs it. Government out of internet. Now, I understand what's going on, and it's that bullshit off the budget crap. So if it's a in return generating investment, you don't have to put it in the budget papers, which makes the books look way better. However, in the case of the NBN, I can't remember when it was last valued, but $50 billion was tipped into building it. But because of the drop in value in fiber, so fiber optic, you could sell it now for more than about 12 billion. Here's where it gets interesting. Here's why he wants to keep it in public hands. If you sell it, that crystallizes the loss, and then it's on the budget because now it's not an investment anymore. You sold it, and you sold it at a $40 billion loss, which the budget now has to recover. That's why he wants to keep it in public hands, because to sell it would bring it onto the budget books as a negative $40 billion loss. So, but there's the moral of the story there is that's why the government shouldn't be investing in tech, because it changes too fast. The capacity for it to endure unbelievable losses is insane. So like the NBN, and I remember saying this at the time, the NBN will be a colossal failure. It's a terrible idea. We didn't need it at the time because there was a robust ADSL market at the time. And since it's been out, like the private market has been smashing them in terms of speeds that it can deliver. So the company I work for, we deliver 10 times the speed of the NBN, even with the new plans that they're planning on releasing, which is 1,000. There's going to be 1,000 down, 400 up plan coming out. Yeah, we can sell 10 times faster than that. So, and we're already doing it. So the government's playing catch up in the fiber space, but now they're talking about tipping $4 billion into $6 billion into low Earth orbit because they've got their panties in a scrunch about Elon.
Yeah.
But Amazon Cupia just started launching in Australia. So the Amazon Cupia is doing low Earth orbit internet satellites. That happened last month. So Amazon and Starlink are now competing for the Australian satellite-based broadband. So Albo is going to spend $6 billion to compete with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Who do you think comes third in that race, Dobbo? Who do you think comes third?
Yeah, it's a waste. It's a waste.
Yeah. That's going to be like putting a guy in a wheelchair up against Gout and Usain Bolt. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that $6 billion will be lost. And will produce like a crappy, low, like poor imitation of Starlink or Amazon Kuiper. And taxpayer money, but it's not on the budget because it's an returning investment. It's a return generating investment. Just outrageous. Absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, Yeah, so back to these numbers. So I'm seeing swings to the ALP and swings away from the Greens. That's what I'm seeing.
Yes.
Nothing much else.
For Labor, so
for my money, I think that's a great outcome.
That's looking a little better.
I think that's
for,
really
Labor.
good.
I don't know if the seat of Bean in the ACT's come back at all for Labor based on those early numbers.
No, it was.
I'm really happy that there's been a solid rebuffing of the Greens. It needed to happen. Like
more than 5%.
I don't think you understand how bad it has been down here in Melbourne.
Allowing for
the anti-Semitism
buffering that's going on around us.
Hey, I live right next to Albanese's electoral office, and there's been pro-Palestinian protesters out the front of that for the last almost 2 years. So, it's been pretty bad here too.
The
reasons to do with
the
Labor Party's on 37%. Peter George is on 24%.
The synagogue that was attacked.
On 17.
It's now 3 months. Still no suspects. Still no people of interest. Nobody's been charged. Just set itself on fire. Just set itself on fire, Dobbo.
Spontaneous combustion. You got to watch out for it.
Yeah. It's outrageous. But
mate, do your homework. Your hero Peter Dutton actually voted against fucking lowering immigration this year, just after Dan Tehan sat with all the heads of universities trying to keep the fucking student visa rort going. So I'd argue that they're both just as bad as each other re-immigration, but the fucking LNP took out both sides of their face. So I'm just happy that hope won over hate. Love you, mate.
So my mate reckons that hope won out over hate tonight. I'll give it a heart. That's a sweet sentiment. But if that is the view of the average voter, that is a failure of Peter Dutton and the coalition to give someone, like you said before, like what's their platform? What's the vision? You don't sell them the feature. You sell them the benefit, like something to hope for. And I tried to do that.
Yeah.
I tried to do that but it's very hard when to counteract the years and years and years of leftist indoctrination. It's just almost impossible to counteract that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to do about the climate change business. I really don't. Because like England is about 70 million people or so. So you're talking now that England's looking at not England, Great Britain is looking at walking away from net zero as well. This is one of the things that honestly it really gives me the shits in Australia. Like we can't just skip over the terrible idea. We have to do the terrible idea 3 years after it's obvious it's a terrible idea and everybody suffered through it elsewhere in the world. But we have to here's a turd. Why don't you have a look at this? Oh yeah, that is a turd. They're like, what?
Why did I need to taste that? I could have just
yeah. America and Great Britain and China all said it was a turd and it tasted horrible. Don't lick it. I just wanted to see for myself. Oh no, no, it really is bad. Anyway. Yeah, but I don't know. I think there are positives to be had here, but yeah, look, it was never very likely that it was going to be a good night for the LNP. You know what I mean? It was never on the cards. It was a bad campaign.
So they have lost one seat in Tasmania. I think that was what we were talking about, the Braddon one. Was that the one you were talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. It's an absolute disaster for Peter Dutton.
Get back to me when it's a catastrophe. Yeah.
Oh, they have here Dutton is losing his seat. That's the ARP. That's the ABC prediction.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, which is interesting. So, who could be the contenders? Maybe Susan Ley, I think, as the deputy, should be the next cab off the rank. And she's a woman. That's what they're going to say. Oh, we didn't appeal to women, so if we put a woman in as our leader, then we'll appeal to women. So,
yeah, right.
And then what will happen is after that is Albo will retire and Tanya Plibersek will become the Prime Minister, and the next election will be between Plibersek and Susan Ley. How's that for a prediction?
Okay. I'm game. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, well, Dutton's pulled a Pierre Polivier, and it's just, yeah, he lost his cool.
Yeah, but
anyway, wait till the pre-polls come in. That's what James McGrath was saying.
When will that happen?
About nowish. All right. I'll get Stu back in a sec.
Unbelievable amount of door knocking, very long run up. And so all of those factors, I think, are playing out there. I'm not calling either of those places, but my friends in both of those electorates.
Can I just ask what you think, and perhaps what you guys think as well, if Teal independent candidates had run in some of these seats in Brisbane, Griffith, Ryan, would they have done better?
You're looking for a four-way?
Well, yeah, would they have done better than the Greens?
Well, I think if you think back to what was happening in 2022 for those Greens, I mean, it was a surprise to see three city seats going to the Greens in Brisbane. There were local factors, aircraft noise, wasn't just about Scott Morrison and the coalition, so significant protest vote. But obviously those seats are mobile now in the way that a lot of seats are across the federal landscape. I'm actually, now that we're back to just phoning people on the ground and working out what's going on, I'd be interested to hear from both of you, moving away from the three-corner seats. What are you hearing about the seats like Leichhardt and Bonner? Because I think our early voting is showing a much stronger Labor presence there than I was anticipating, and also we'd all like to hear a bit more about Dixon and what you're gathering about that.
Before we get to that, I was going to say in Solomon, the figures there with the Northern Territory is that there's a 10% swing to the CLP and a 6% swing away from Labor. So Labor on 30% and we're on 38%. So
that's in the seat of Darwin.
So it's Darwin and Palmerston. And crime is a big issue up there. Leah Finocchiara is a really popular chief minister up there, and I've been door knocking up there with Lisa Bayliss, our candidate.
That explains it.
And no, senators should never door knock. So I was like, but it's just, you could tell that there is a mood there.
James, I'm a trained observer. I just asked you about Queensland, and you've gone straight to the Northern Territory. That tells me you don't have anything good to say about that.
All right, let's go straight to Anthony Green instead. Andy, what can you tell us?
That the Labor Party is still going very strongly at the moment. Just trawling through the Election Commission's website, they've got more than 50 seats, but it's very unclear that the coalition's got more than 25 of them. There's 15 coalition-held seats where the Labor Party is currently leading. Now, without all my fabulous technology, I can't see how close they all are at the moment, but everything that we were talking about earlier looks like it's still occurring with the later numbers. But at this stage, it's a bit hard. We haven't got any ability to turn that into a graphic for you. But at this stage, the figures are still looking good for Labor.
Okay, so that's holding up. Do we know what national percentage of vote has been counted? Because I think earlier it was about 5%.
The Election Commission, I think it's about 16. The Election Commission doesn't publish a percentage on their website anymore.
But that's getting up a little higher.
So 15 coalition seats where Labor's ahead.
Where Labor's ahead at the moment.
Yep.
And we'll see if that holds up. Perhaps we can go to Tony Barry, Cos Samaras and PK for any info they're hearing at the moment as well. Tony, to you first. You were obviously quite concerned about which way the coalition was going half an hour ago or so. Has your level of concern eased at all?
No, and Victoria continues to look very bad for the coalition. I can see a scenario where Jason Wood is the only Liberal MP in Melbourne.
The only Liberal MP in Melbourne?
Yep. And I think Wannon will be probably okay, but it's early days yet.
You're therefore saying people like Keith Wallahan and Michael Sukkar are going to lose their seats in Melbourne?
I think it's going to be very hard unless there is a extraordinary flow of preferences, well beyond, heroic assumptions even. So big questions need to be asked of the Victorian Liberal Party once again. They continue to find new ways to fail. And I think with just 8 seats out of 38 to start with, and they could fall even further, there is simply no pathway to victory in the near future, in the next couple of elections, unless the Liberal Party can be semi-competitive in Victoria. And I'm talking 15 out of 38 seats. I'm not talking about, majority of seats. So there's some soul searching to be done. We don't want to have an autopsy just yet while the body is still alive, but it's pretty clear that Victoria, where the great hope was for the coalition, and there were potentially up to 10 seats on the table in early polling, all the way down the pendulum to, potentially Isaacs even, Gorton and Hawke were all in the frame. And the Labor Party have run, look, all credit to Paul Erickson. They've run a fantastic campaign. They leveraged off the nuclear campaign message there with the $60 billion cost that will come out of Medicare. On our polling, that was net 43% agreement, which is massive. Now, there's some dubious claims about the $60 billion.
I think it's 600 billion. That was a Labor figure.
It was obviously fairly dubious, but, the thing with good campaign directors is they're tough but unfair. And Paul Erickson is a very good campaign director.
We'll come back to Cos and PK, get some thoughts from you. But just on the Liberals, don't want to do the autopsy while the body's alive, says Tony Barry. Let's go to Olivia Casely, who's at the Liberal Party headquarters tonight in Brisbane. Liv, tell us, what's the feeling there at the moment about the way this is going tonight?
Well, I'd love to be able to bring you some of the reaction among the Liberal Party faithful to these early swings we're seeing towards Labor, but the truth is I can't. Up until the past 10 minutes or so, there were very few Liberal supporters in this room. Indeed, this room was just filled with journalists and Liberal staffers that have worked on the campaign. I had been told that there'd be people arriving around 7:30, and so I actually went outside to investigate and see what was going on here. And indeed, VIP supporters and guests, friends and family, I should say, of Peter Dutton are actually sequestered away in a separate room. I did try and get in behind that velvet rope, but they didn't let me in there. They say that there was just those close supporters there. But I did see former Attorney General Christian Porter making his way into that special area. I'm also told that former Prime Minister Tony Abbott will be arriving here at some point this evening. But when we look at Dixon more generally, it is the most marginal seat in Queensland, held on 1.7%. And indeed, that is the location that Anthony Albanese chose to go. It was his first stop on the campaign trail almost 35 days ago now. He was joined by Treasurer Jim Chalmers, who joins you there on the panel. At the time, it was considered a bit of a mind game, if you like, but perhaps it is certainly, though, I should say, in Labor's sights. I've spoken to lots of sources, both on the coalition side and Labor. while the government would like to pick up Peter Dutton's seat, I am sort of told that it is unlikely. It's an outside chance. And I would also add that caveat as well, that ultimately we haven't seen those pre-poll results coming through just yet, but Labor would certainly be happy about some of the figures we're seeing so far.
Liv, thank you very much indeed for that update. We're now going to cross to Jane Norman, who's at ALP H-Quarters in Sydney. How's the contrast? Liv just described a very quiet room at Liberal Party headquarters. How is it in Sydney?
A very loud room here, Sarah. I think the mood is buoyant. There's one of excitement and expectation building. You might not be able to see because of where our camera's positioned, but there are hundreds of people in this room, all wearing their red T-shirts. They're kind of gathered to my left around the ABC broadcast because that's the audio that has been playing. But when we first arrived tonight, people were just pure anxiety. They were terribly anxious about the result, and they've certainly become more and more optimistic as the night has unfolded. And I just actually had a text from a Labor insider who said that if the Labor lead is maintained when the pre-polls are counted, then we're bound for glory. So certainly a contrast with the Liberal HQ. And I think it's worth reflecting that at the very start of this campaign, Spearsy, when you and I were on the panel together as the day the election was called, we said that this election would be decided during the 5-week campaign because there were just so many soft, undecided voters. Well, Labor has pointed out that unusually for an opposition leader, Peter Dutton's standing has actually gone backwards during this campaign, largely due to his missteps and mistakes, but also a pretty big character assassination sort of launched by the Labor Party. The last time they said that happened was largely Bill Shorten in 2019, Mark Latham in 2004, but certainly the campaign hasn't helped Peter Dutton. And so, you know, we'll see what obviously happens tonight, but as, you know, the panel was remarking, Labor has run really a textbook campaign for the past 35 days.
Yeah, no, the campaign has not been kind and not been a helpful period for Peter Dutton. That's very clear in what we're seeing.
They lied
so
a lot.
Jane, thank you. Let's go back to Anthony Green for the latest numbers.
I've just been trying through the Election Commission. The Labor Party is currently heading Hughes, Banks and Bradfield in New South Wales. Labor's ahead in Aston, Deakin, Menzies, Casey and Flinders in Victoria. Labor's ahead in Bonner, Leichhardt, Dixon, Petrie, Longman, Ford. There's a Mick now. I'm not sure which yet, and Bowman.
Not McPherson.
Bowman. I haven't looked.
Dixon, Peter Dutton's seat.
Yes.
Anthony, what can you tell us any more about that? Labor's ahead there still.
Both major parties' primary vote is well down, but the Labor Party is currently ahead on that primary vote. If Labor's ahead on primary votes, there's preferences from the Teal Independent. I'd have to go and have a look at it.
Okay. Do either of you have any? You've got some intel on that?
The AEC page for Dixon up currently showing projected two-candidate preferred at 57% to Labor.
57%. Based on how many voted?
It doesn't say, but it's looking at this stage a 9.57% swing.
This is Bowman here,
which makes us Canada if that's what's happening.
Sorry, Laura, did you say?
Henry Pike is still ahead, though he has suffered a swing against him.
Your leader, Peter Dutton, will be in Parliament?
Yes. Let's wait for...
What gives you that confidence right now?
Getting all the pre-poll figures in. Let's wait for them all to come in. And as I've said, I think several times tonight, Dixon is always a tight seat. Peter has held it by less than 100 votes after the 2007 election. Peter will be there. A number of seats, whether ours or Labor's or the Teals, we will not know the results of tonight.
You think the pre-polls will be good enough to reverse a 9% swing?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
I think so.
Has that happened before, ever?
We noticed that pre-poll was particularly good in Queensland for us.
Jim Chalmers, just on that seat of Dixon, you were cautious earlier. What do you think now?
Oh, look, I'm still cautious, but that's a hell of a swing, and it's a big chunk of votes that have been counted. And so Ali France and her amazing campaign team would be feeling encouraged, but I don't think anyone thinks we're home and hosed yet. If you look at another Queensland seat, which I've been following very closely, it's my neighbour, the seat of Bonner. We have built a very substantial lead there as well, about 36% of the vote counted there, and it's looking like broadly a 60-40 contest. That will close up because of early voting. But Cara Cook is in a very, very strong position in Bonner, and I feel relatively confident.
Do you feel relatively confident Labor's going to retain government and you will still be Treasurer?
Look, it's looking harder and harder for the coalition. I think that's been acknowledged in different ways. I am from the Richard Marles school. As he explained to us earlier on, I'm extremely cautious about this. I do genuinely think, as James does, that this will tighten up considerably. But I am surprised that we are holding on to some of these big leads as we get into the kind of the 30%, 40% of counting.
You're all about the pre-poll, James McGrath, but are there conversations happening in other parts of the party now about Peter Dutton's leadership, with or without, leave Dixon aside for the moment?
No.
Too early? That conversation isn't happening?
No. Peter has one of the characteristics of the opposition since our loss in 2022 has been the unified team. If you recall what happened after 2007, there was a lot of it was shambolic. It's probably a polite way of putting it. He's been able to keep the team united. Peter will stay leader as long as he wants to be leader.
There's been quite a lot of discussion about that unity. Obviously, some congratulations for the way he kept the party together, but at the same time there were accusations that it led to a squashing of proper policy debate within the opposition, and that's how you ended up with a less than well-developed policy slate going into the campaign. Is there any truth in that?
I don't think there's any truth in that. That's not my experience with policy development within the coalition.
Just on something you just said, James McGrath, Peter Dutton will remain leader as long as he wants to remain leader. Doesn't the party room after an election, doesn't the party room get a chance to say, hang on, if it's gone disastrously, we should have a say on who our leader should be?
Traditionally, from experience, I think that does happen, but the party room would strongly support Peter Dutton.
Even if it's a bad night?
Party room would strongly support Peter Dutton.
So that's your message to the party room? They should stick with Peter Dutton no matter how bad this gets?
My reading is the party room, and I can sometimes read things like numbers, is the party room would strongly support Peter Dutton. Peter has done a good job keeping us together.
Is that based on conversations with your colleagues about that? Have you actually talked about
Well, no, because no one's actually talking about it because we've been focusing on Labor.
So how do you know?
I've been in politics a long time. You don't get to look like this by not being
Explain to us this reading of people without talking.
Because we've been focused on the Labor Party and focused on the Greens and focused on the tiers.
Sorry, I'm just going to answer a question on this. You're reading people and you're confident that no matter what, they'll stick with Dutton.
Totally.
But you've never had a conversation with them, and you don't think you should have a conversation.
There's no need to have conversations because the party room for 3 years has been so strongly behind Peter and will continue to be behind Peter. He's kept us together. And having these types of conversations, I don't think is helpful while the votes are still coming in.
Sorry, Jim Chalmers, hold that. Anthony Green's got something important for us.
I'm not sure it's important. I can't see how the coalition wins from here. Everything I'm seeing...
Oh, that does sound important.
...is bad for them.
Don't let me interrupt you, Anthony.
Is that they've just gone backwards. I can't see... It is bad news everywhere for them. There's seats all over the country, all over the eastern states. They're losing. They're behind in. No, they need
Sky News has called it.
Majority government. They need to
4 minutes ago, Sky News called it.
They're currently in the process of losing 12 to 15.
Albanese.
The trend is all the wrong way, and I am a bit limited in the amount of data I can see at the moment, but it is impossible to see how this turns around. This isn't necessary. I mean, at the moment, it's a bit hard to work this out. Let's just say that. I can't see how the coalition wins from here. Now, does that mean the Albanese government is won? Well, yes, it's a binary contest. Have they got majority or minority? On these figures, they are going to have a substantially increased majority.
So you are categorically ruling out anything other than a minority or majority government for Anthony Albanese tonight?
Probably. I'm a bit hindered. Look, I can't see how the coalition gets into government from the numbers we're seeing at the moment. Therefore, the coalition can't form government. Therefore, Labor will form government in the next parliament. So you're helping me form my words by asking
You heard what James McGrath said. He thinks the pre-poll is going to perform a miracle.
So hang on. Just to be clear, you're saying Labor has won? Either in a minority or a majority government.
For pre-poll to turn around from here, they'd have to have a lot of loaves and fishes, I think. I think it's a big swing that's on at the moment. I can't see how it turns around. Now, I'll put the caveat on, I'm a bit limited by the numbers, but it's just, this could be a big win for Labor, but it's certainly a win.
It's certainly a win for Labor. I think we can take that as Anthony calling it as a win of some sort for Labor tonight. And look, this will be the final call that Anthony makes, and he might firm up that call as to whether it's a minority or a majority. This is his last night with us as our chief elections analyst. But that would make... But that would also make it, for Anthony Albanese, the first Prime Minister to win back-to-back elections in more than 20 years. He has taken Labor from being behind in the polls before the campaign began to now being in this position where he has won either in a minority.
Last person to win back-to-back was Howard in 1998.
And we can see someone with the Anthony Green T-shirt there celebrating that call from Anthony Green just now. That would be at the Labor headquarters tonight, and they'd be celebrating that moment from Anthony Green there. Jim Chalmers, congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you. Can I pay tribute to the Prime Minister again? The way that he has led our team in these circumstances has been nothing short of phenomenal. And the fact that we are at 8:30...
But I think it is far too early to be discussing any changes in our leadership. We've got a long way to run in terms of where the number of seats that we win or perhaps lose, where we know the final result.
But it's looking pretty bad at the moment, isn't it?
It's looking terrible. It's looking pretty challenging. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to just cut into the chase. But there is some green shoots. I like to stay positive. And I want to say that in Solomon, in the Northern Territory, there's looks like a very strong swing to the Country Liberals' Lisa Bayliss. Yep. Two-party preferred, she is leading Luke Gosling, Labor member, by 7.1%. She's run a very strong campaign on law and order.
Have the ticket to run this time, potentially, or if Josh was the answer, the legacy.
Very
Sorry to keep you waiting.
She's run a very strong agenda aligned with the Northern Territory government.
I'm just going to let Fredlin speak here. Can you hear us?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Current Liberal on the...
Well, clearly there are lessons to be learned, but I think it is far too early to be discussing any changes in our leadership. We've got a long way to run in terms of where the number of seats that we win or perhaps lose, where we know the final result.
But it's looking pretty bad at the moment, isn't it?
It's looking pretty challenging. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to just cut into the chase. But there is some green shoots. I like to stay positive. And I want to say that in Solomon, in the Northern Territory, there's looks like a very strong swing to the Country Liberals' Lisa Bayliss. Two-party preferred, she is leading Luke Gosling, Labor member, by 7.1%. She's run a very strong campaign on law and order. Of course, Leah thinks...
Labor are in the lead in Bowman.
I checked that. Pike was still ahead by my estimate. I did check it. Let's have another look at it.
If it's Bowman, that is a fucking catastrophe.
Yeah, so by my estimate,
Bowman is a state Liberal seat.
On ABC website, Pike is ahead by 0.8%. Against that, oh geez, look at that snotty-nosed bastard, Darcy Brown. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but look, Anthony Green has already called it, and so has Sky News, that Labor has...
For Henry Pike?
No, for Labor. Labor has won... Bowman. So, yeah, not Bowman. Just Labor has won re-election.
No. Labor has won the election. I did say the odds were not good for Albo, for Dutton. And I mean, what more is there to say, really? I really don't know. I don't know what to say exactly, except like I heard them talking about bringing Josh Frydenberg back, and Peter Credlin said if he had the ticker, he would have run this time.
Yep. Frydenberg's not coming back.
No, he's not. And I don't. I've met him on a couple of occasions, and he is an extremely intelligent man. Very, very, very smart man. And I think that's the same with Dave Sharma. Like Dave Sharma is very, very, very smart, but they just, I don't see them as potentials for leader of the country. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're the kind of person that a charismatic leader, if they've got it in the slot, you know what I mean? If they've got a Josh Frydenberg in their back pocket, that will make them a very, very effective leader. But if they don't, but they're not the kind of person to be able to lead particularly effectively in their own right. And I don't know where he landed on The Voice, but I heard someone saying Julian Leeser needs to be brought front and center of the party. And I'm like, anyone who resigned because the LNP wouldn't get on board with The Voice is irreparably damaged goods. I'm sorry. No, you've got no business being near actual power.
Yeah, I think an honest analysis needs to be done. How could we win The Voice 60-40 and then lose the general election basically 60-40?
Possibly in a landslide.
Yeah, the other way. Like, how is that possible? One thing is, if you're trying to become the leader of the country and there's no it's time factor, or even if there is it's time factor, I think you need to pass a charisma check. You need to roll a 20. And Dutton rolled a 1. Like, his charisma check completely failed.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's unarguable. Look, I think I'm quietly suspicious that he was white-anted by the Turnbull wet lettuce wing of the party. And I think the Turnbull wet lettuce wing of the party needs to be put to the sword and exterminated. It needs to be hunted out of the party.
Yeah, well, this result's not going to help that, is it?
No, it's not, but that is what needs to happen.
Well, it's not going to happen,
though. Well, we'll see. If Dutton loses his seat, then it's definitely not going to happen.
Exactly, yeah.
But look, I mean, what can you say to that except yeah, look, I don't really know what to say to that other than
oof.
Yeah, I think we have to have a reform type movement. I know it's not Trumpet of the Patriots. Even though they're well funded. And it's not going to be One Nation. Like, bless her, she's been at it for 30 years now. So she's a well-seasoned politician, but Pauline Hanson is too deeply wounded.
Oh, she's just toxic, man. One Nation over the years has had 32 members elected in various capacities. 28 of them have quit the party within their first term.
Quit the party, yeah.
I mean, in New South Wales Upper House, they had 3 members, Mark Latham and 2 other members. Now they've got 0. I think Mark Latham quit as well. Like, it's just...
What happened in that election? So is Mark Latham in the state parliament, or is that over now?
No, he is. He's still in the state parliament, yeah.
But just as himself?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Fucking hell. No, yeah, look, Bowman. Liberal are going to win Bowman. ALP are going to win Bowman.
What? That's not what I'm seeing.
ALP are going to win Bowman. That is a fucking
Where are you
disaster.
seeing that? I liked Henry Pike. Where are you seeing
Yeah,
that?
on the Sky News decision desk. And it's also on the AEC tally room.
Oh, ALP gains Bonner. That's Ross Faster gone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it has been a horrific night for the LNP. Very, very bad.
Oh, Julian
I think they're
Lesser
going to go backwards.
is way backwards. Julian Lesser is only just scraped through by 0.8%. Man, nothing seems to have gone right tonight, has it? Nothing at all.
No, but what I would say is the Greens. The Greens are on track to lose everything except Melbourne, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not that I didn't really care anyway. I never thought the Greens were going to have a coalition with Labor anyway. I thought it would be more likely the Teals would have a coalition with Labor.
Well, that would always depend, though, right? Like it would have depended on how big a minority government. Because anything
Labor's won a majority, a thumping majority. They are clowning at home.
I haven't heard that phraseology in a while. They're not going that hard, to be honest. I don't think they're going to have an 80-seat majority. Doesn't look that way on the data yet.
I think so. If they're winning Bowman, Bonner, Braddon, Leichhardt, now they may lose a seat in Darwin, but still, they already have a majority. They will.
That is fucking bananas to me. Like the I mean, we'll see how it goes.
If they win Dixon, I heard commentary before that on these numbers there will only be one LNP member left in Melbourne, and in the state of Victoria, which has 38 seats, the coalition might hold 3-4 of them.
Yeah, the Sunraysia they will hold until the end of time. I think
Is that
the
Darren
national
Chester?
lady the Nationals lady there is she holds that by like 60%. Yeah, it's Malley.
Ann Webster.
she's gonna win it. Her primary vote's 49.55. She's gonna win it. Her primary vote. Win outright on her primary vote. There's almost no one who can say they can do that, right?
Apparently there's chat which I've been ignoring. Sorry about that. I don't know how to do this. Which chat is it? Is it in?
What chat are you talking about?
Maybe it's the. I'm not sure which chat. Apparently there's questions in the chat. Sorry. Can you see any in the chat?
I don't. What chat?
The chat for the live stream. I can't see any though.
I can't see any.
No, I can't see any either. Sorry about that, Matt.
That's okay. There's one watching. There's one person watching the stream. I think it's me.
Apparently, there is a chat though. Not sure which platform because we are on Facebook, X, and YouTube.
I don't even know how it will work on X.
Okay. So, I didn't even see those. Sorry, Matt. Matt's asking, one, who do the Trumpets give their votes to? LNP. They wouldn't give them to Labor. 2.
Well, no, I'm not sure I agree with that. They're probably mostly towards it. But trumpeted patriots, I personally think you'd probably get a bit of right-wing Labor vote going there. But generally speaking, yeah. Like they're accounting for 2% of the vote, and maybe 70% of that will go to the LNP.
Yeah, second question was Herbert Pike is Bowman? Yeah. Bowman is your seat.
Mm.
Well, yeah. And that's Henry Pike, who I had pegged him as a future sort of leader. I thought he presented himself well.
Yeah, he seems good. My dad campaigned for him, and he likes him. He likes him a lot.
Is your dad in Queensland?
Yeah, in Bowman.
Yeah, well, I liked him a lot, so I would have hoped. I still don't think he's going to lose his seat, but if he does, that is an absolute disaster.
Yeah, that is the Dutton disaster.
The Dutton disaster. 2025. The Dutton disaster.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, what else can you call it? It's fucking bad, man. It is really fucking bad. Like,
there's no coming back from this for the Liberal Party. They are finished.
I think that's right. I don't know. It's probably hard to say, but I think.
Look, if they can't
win the chat
more than one seat in Melbourne, the biggest city in Australia by population, you're not forming government ever.
And let me add some, like, this is proper doom pilling, but serious analysis. If you can't win with the Victorian state Labor government as on the nose as it is at the moment, it's over. You can't compete in Victoria. Yeah, and you're right. At this stage, it looks like it's going to be the entire metropolitan area. So the Liberals might win Latrobe, but
I don't think so.
Latrobe is outside of. I think you have to go past Dandenong. So that's not in the city. Latrobe is like most of the way to Phillip Island, to the bridge to Phillip Island down at San Remo.
But I lived in Melbourne in 2018. At the time, I remember Peter Dutton made comments about African crime gangs. And I was astonished because what he seemed to be saying just seemed like self-evidently true to me. But everyone in Melbourne that I talked to, which wasn't like everyone, but everyone that I talked to just fucking hated Peter Dutton, thought he was like so racist for saying that. And it's just like, I just can't relate to this sort of attitude. Like what he was saying seemed reasonable and self-evidently true to me. And it's only gotten worse. Like machetes are banned in Victoria now. Why are machetes banned? What if I want to do some gardening? I need to do some pruning and I can't because I can't use a machete. Like, what is that? What is that? How is that Peter Dutton's fault? I don't. I really. Whatever.
Yeah, and which countries in the world tend to use machetes in gang fights? Which ones are those again? Yeah. And if you wind the clock back 15 years, did we have like a large machete problem? No, we didn't. There was a wave of immigration, and hang on a minute. Let's listen to what Jacinta Price has to say.
Yeah, all right. Share up.
To that criticism, and where did it go wrong in your view?
Look, I think that we could have gone harder. We absolutely could have gone harder. We could have gone harder also on calling out the Prime Minister and his lies, because apparently all you have to do is lie to the Australian people. And that's an effective enough campaign to maintain government. I mean, it was a big ask also to be able to unseat a Prime Minister after his first term. Obviously hasn't been done in quite some time, but there's a lot that we're going to have to consider going forward and regrouping as far as the coalition in terms of the approach that we take in 3 years' time and considering where we went wrong this time around.
It's Andrew Clennell. During the campaign, you said at a rally, "Make Australia great again," and then said you couldn't remember it. Was it an issue, do you think,
shut up, Andrew Clennell,
that the coalition didn't do enough to say we will actually oppose Donald Trump, not beat Donald Trump?
Like that would have helped.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't necessarily think. I think obviously Labor took that those 4 words.
If Trump's so toxic, why did Reform, led by Nigel Farage, who's Trump's best friend, do so well last night in the UK?
And why did Pierre Poilievre do so badly? Poilievre went hard on Trump.
Look, everyone knows that Dutton is more aligned to Trump than Albanese. So if you just cede that ground without an argument, oh yes, Trump is really bad, oh yes, but we don't support him that much. Everyone knows that you're not being genuine. So you just can't. You have to make the argument. You might lose the argument.
But you also have to distinguish yourself. So what should have happened is, and I was saying this to Dad, like when it came out that Claire O'Neill had CCP authorised volunteers for her campaign, working on her campaign. Why was there not attack ads ready to go on that? So
I didn't even hear.
But I'm not the one called the handsome boy by Xi Jinping.
I didn't even hear about that, Stu. And like you, I'm plugged in. I spend like the majority of all day, every day.
Claire O'Neill had CCP operatives volunteering for her campaign.
I didn't even hear about that. And I spend most of my day, every single day, reading about politics. What the?
Yeah.
How bad of a campaign do you have to be if you can't attack, make an attack stick on that? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm too much like Trump. Elbow's too much like Xi Jinping. Hit him with that.
Exactly.
I'm not Xi Jinping's handsome boy. They were the words they used.
Oh,
He's a handsome boy.
I know. I do know that.
It's obvious that you don't have to stand up to Trump. You have to stand up to China. And it's clear as day. They don't consider him a credible threat at all. They hold him in outright contempt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, why are these not anticipated and why aren't you punching back?
All right, ABC has called that Dutton has lost his seat. He's out of Parliament. ABC has called it.
Yeah, right. What's his face called it yet?
Sky.
Yeah. They say it's still in doubt, but not going to lie, it's looking pretty fucking ugly.
ABC has straight up called it. He's gone. Right. Wow. I guess, any swing at all to Labor was going to be...
He was always holding that seat on a narrow margin. It has to be acknowledged.
He was the most marginal seat in Queensland, but it was held by 1%. So a 4% swing to Labor, that seat's gone. And they've got a 4% swing, so... They've won everything. There's not one bright spot from the Liberal perspective at all. The only thing is, from a One Nation perspective, they might win Hunt still. They're in with the sniff. And we'll see how the Senate shakes out. But yeah, the House of Reps, which is always the exciting house, it's gone decisively. I can't believe that. Dutton's gone as well. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, he rolled a 1 on his charisma check. He just got completely what a time to roll a critical fail.
So can I quickly, let's listen to Peter Credlin for a second.
On many issues, you speak out. out against Trump, and there is an element inside the Liberal Party fraternity that fire up at that.
Yeah, right.
I distinguish Trump from the conservative agenda. There are things
going more conservative, but then Trump screwed the rest of the world, including Australia. I was at a function the other night where I was talking to a merchant banker and a CEO I'd never met before. They bagged Donald Trump for 20 minutes. If only because of what he's doing to the world's economy.
What happened here in Australia is people brought across a lot of the Trump momentum and policies, mistaking populism for conservatism. And they're very, very different things. And conservatives like me have had a beef with Trump on many issues, and you speak out against Trump, and there is an element inside the Liberal Party fraternity that fire up at that.
Conservatives lose. That is, it's not the 20th century anymore. Peter Credlin is arguing for conservatism.
What happened is when Trump
it's a
started
loser ideology, man. Nationalism.
Dropped Doge, dropped a whole lot of other things, when we should never be against wanting fiscal prudence and budgets. We shouldn't be ever against trying to cut down waste.
Didn't you have to separate? Wasn't that smart in one sense? Because you had to separate yourself from Trump, right? Yeah. When he was so unpopular.
You can walk and choose gum.
Yeah,
exactly.
You didn't have to separate yourself from Trump.
UK.
You had to make the case. You had to make the case to boomers. Hey, it's going to be difficult to transition our economy away from relying on literal slave labor in China. But if we don't, they will become the most powerful economy. They will become the most powerful military. They will spread communism. So we've got no choice. That's the case. That's the argument you had to make. They didn't make it. They were, oh no, Trump is. We're not like Trump.
Yeah, and
fuck you,
conservative. There's a bit that I would like to say there actually, because so here I would put, I think it's actually vitally important. Like the Australian Liberal Party is bad on Ukraine. Now, I'm not in the Jeff Sachs camp of Ukraine brought it on themselves.
You deserve it, Ukraine. What were you thinking? I don't know. Ukraine need to bring it on themselves.
I think foreign policy-wise, I am an ardent realist.
Yeah, me too.
And here are the brass tacks for Ukraine, and you can make the exact same argument for Vietnam, Korea, and Mexico. Ukraine shares a massive land border with at one time great power, near great power. Mexico shares a border with a great power. Vietnam shares a border with a great power. I'm sorry, but the reality is you don't have full autonomy if you share a border with a great power. You're in their sphere of influence, and if you do something that they don't like, you're just going to have to live with the outcome. Imagine a Russian Iron Dome or a Chinese Iron Dome being deployed in Tijuana that could shoot across the entire western seaboard of the United States and shoot down any ICBMs that are coming from Montana towards China. Do you think for 1 second on either side of politics you wouldn't see an immediate military incursion to destroy that base?
Stu, this is the argument I've made for the longest time as well. Russia has to be respected as a great power with a sphere of influence. Why? Because they fucked up Hitler and they fucked up Napoleon. That's why. That's why they have to be respected. We don't have to like it, and I don't like it.
There's 130 million of them. There's 130 million of them. They cover 11 time zones. Russia's not going anywhere, and it's full of fucking Russians.
Yeah, they need to be respected. And they need to somehow you need to find some détente with them. You need to. And trying to
be in their grill
and doing a colour revolution in their satellite state is not the way to do it. Yeah, exactly.
No,
exactly.
And holy fucking hell, Sky has been worse than useless on the summer offensive is going to be different this time. It's been going for 4 years. They're going to have another summer offensive, which will be another meat grinder where, another 50,000 Ukrainian boys will die for no reason. And all you have to ask yourself is, in the last 1,000 years, who has successfully moved east under military arms towards Russia through Ukraine? This many people. This many people in 1,000 years. But Victoria Newland's different. Victoria Newland really understands.
So my dad had
too many.
So my dad has an interesting perspective on this as well, Stu, which is that he believes Russia could be in trouble economically, and they could lose sovereignty of their eastern territories, which borders with China. And so Trump is also making a calculation. If Russia gets weaker, that actually makes China stronger. So we can't let Russia get too weak. Kind of don't know what I think about that analysis, but it's also another factor as to why we shouldn't just be like, Putin's a Nazi, death to Russians.
God, the rules-based international order. If I hear one more word about that, the rules-based international order, which the United States routinely breaks as a matter of policy. Since we've been living in the international rules-based order that was established in 91, the United States has bombed with total impunity Serbia, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Iran, Afghanistan. Come on. Somalia, Rwanda. Come on. You know what I mean? It's the rules-based international order is the United States can do whatever it wants, however it wants. And they don't have the hegemonic power to do that anymore. You know what I mean? They just don't have it. China is too strong now.
And that's why Trump needs to do what he's doing on the economic front with tariffs, which boomers in particular hate. And the reason why they hate it is because the value of their super accounts went down. And they're acutely aware of that because they can't put more money into them. That's it. They're retiring. What they've got is what they've got. If that goes down, well, that's a big disaster. But unfortunately, boomers, we've got to stop them somehow. No one else is going to do it. And if we don't do it, they're going to bring communism and they're going to enslave us like they've enslaved their own people. So how do you think we should try and tackle China?
Tell me how we deal with that. Yeah. Tell me how we deal with that and the COVID pandemic showed exactly the nature of how friendly we can expect to be. They refused to shut their borders when it broke out, and they had friendly business owners here in Australia take something like, I can't remember how much it was. It was well over 60 tons of PPE, face masks, all that kind of stuff. So they had their friendly businesses in Australia pilfer our PPE
to send to China
while refusing to shut their borders. That's the kind of friend China is. And what do you do with that? What you tell me? And I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree with you completely. Like, I'm sorry that you've got to retire now and that you've got to take a hit on your super. But the last 20 years of liberal policy, liberal world order policy of China will normalize if we just let them into the world trade, is going to have turned out to be, at the moment, it was an act of massive self-harm. But if it doesn't get dealt with, it's got the potential to be a civilizational suicide note. And Trump seems to be the only person in the world who sees that clearly.
We don't want a war with China. We just have to.
But we don't want to be economically dependent on them either.
No, that's what I mean. We just have to rebuild our manufacturing capacity. We have to do it. And tariffs are the only way to do it. I'm open to other suggestions. I personally like the idea of tariffs because, as a student of history, the period in which the American economy expanded the most rapidly and the living standards rose the most was during the period when they had no income tax and tariffs. So I would like, just as a student of history, it's a very surface level analysis. But like, hey, why don't we go back to doing it that way?
It stands a reasonable amount of scrutiny because the same thing happened in England. The imperial trade preference saw the biggest expansion of UK improvement in quality of life from under Pax Britannia. So from about 1812 through to roughly the American Civil War. After the American Civil War, America started taking over. The important thing to take away, though, is that the British Empire, which is the world's largest ever empire, built on tariffs. It was not built on free trade.
And this is what I always thought the carbon tax should be. The carbon tax should be an import tariff calculated on the amount of carbon emissions that were used to manufacture that product and to transport it, because that would benefit local industry in Australia because you don't have to transport it anywhere. So then that doesn't use any carbon emissions.
Far less. Yeah.
Yeah. And then because why should our businesses be punished and set as a competitive disadvantage? Because our government stops them from, polluting the environment. And then the Chinese companies their government doesn't stop them. In fact, it encourages them and they can undercut everyone. Like, how is that fair? That's not fair.
Yeah. Oh, well, look, I am blown away by Bowman. Blown away. I'm blown away by Bowman. It's only 23% counted, so I don't know when these postal votes are going to hit.
Darcy Brown is on 32. Yeah, Christy Lockhart.
Yeah. To anti-Semites. Yeah. So he has shown courage. And if he's punished for his courage, then I hope that, that the rest of the nation at least knows that there was a very good man there who made a fight. Yep. He might have lost the fight, but he didn't lose the war. No, he's fantastic.
Very sensible on national security issues to negotiate with him and deal with him.
I want to bring in Andrew Bolt. Andrew, I want to ask you this question as we look at this number tonight. How do you go with a political party that had such an emphatic win in its position and its opposition to The Voice to a rout of the sort we're seeing
tonight? That's what I asked. Yeah.
That's astonishing when you think that, in 4 months he managed to go from what was the primary vote, about 38%, so some say even higher at one stage, to what is it now, 30%? I mean, that's disastrous. And I suspect that a lot of that, it just finally collapsed the last 2 weeks, I think probably went really badly very fast. We're talking a lot about Peter Dutton, and personally I like Peter Dutton, don't know him that well, I've only met him a few times, but nice guy, all that. But it's not who you are face to face, it's what you present. And people thought he was scary. I think Tanya Piverset probably did it deliberately, likening him to Voldemort. His looks were unfortunate. That stuck. People, scary guy. And when he then tried, it's a bit like Bill Shorten trying to be I'm not the union tough guy, I'm going to talk really nicely and kindly and sweetly. People didn't buy it. It wasn't really him. Made worse by the fact that he couldn't talk about defence for weeks, which would have been a natural fit. But we're talking all about the failures of the Liberals. We've got to look on the other hand. You had Anthony Albanese. Sure, he lied his way to a win. I got that. His policies will be rubbish. I think the Liberal Party will have, the Labor Party is going to have a real big challenge in front of it, restoring the economy to some health, but all that. But in these troubled times, Anthony Albanese had what Peter Dutton did not, and that is an ease with people. You saw it on the election campaign, all through it. He wasn't phased. He's good for a laugh, good for a beer. He's even contacted me. Would you believe? I'm one of his hardest critics. I would get texts and calls from him. I mean, seriously, this is a nice guy to many people. And in these times, that's what they wanted, as opposed to a scary guy. I know that's a superficial reading, But I tell you what, it counts for a lot. You've got to have a guy.
I don't think that's bad analysis.
Leader, and that is
Maybe
reassuring
superficial, but
these times. And I have no idea who the Liberals will turn to for that.
I can tell you right here, right, it's not superficial analysis. It's that Voldemort thing is, I don't know, the alopecia hurt him.
Stu, we're just about running out of time, and since the election has already been called, I might wrap up the stream there. It has been really fun, and it didn't go the way I was hoping. But anyway, it was very interesting to talk about it with you.
Yes. No, yeah, it was a good stream. Look, there'll be lots to say in the wrap up. There'll be lots to say in the wrap up, but I think that not attacking the lies was just a catastrophic error. I don't know.
Yeah.
And one thing I do need to say actually before we go, I did not see, so on the 4 main media things that I consume where there's ads, Apple Podcasts, Twitter, YouTube, and Binge. In 6 weeks, across all 4, I did not see or hear one Liberal ad.
It was a failed campaign.
One.
It was a failed
Not
campaign.
one.
And that
That's
will have
unrelenting catastrophe.
We'll have to leave it there, Stu, but it was definitely a failed campaign.